It's the night of April 4th, 1958. Beverly Hills, California. A quiet cul-de-sac lined with manicured hedges and soft porch lights. Inside a lavish Spanish-style home on Bedford Drive, a scene is unfolding that will forever alter the mythology of Hollywood glamour. Blood on the carpet, a knife on the floor, a woman clutching a phone, her voice cracked with panic. And at the center of it all, a man who had strutted through the underworld of Los Angeles as if it were his personal stage. Johnny Stompanato. If you're just joining us, welcome to Cougars and Gigolos, a true crime podcast that explores the dangerous liaisons between power, passion, and opportunism. We examine cases where relationships built on desire and manipulation veer into crime, scandal, or tragedy. Today we open our series with a case that reads like a noir screenplay, but happened in real life, inside one of Hollywood's most famous homes. Johnny Stompanato was no ordinary suitor. By 1958, he was a known associate of gangster Mickey Cohen, a handsome, impeccably dressed ex-Marine who made a living as an enforcer and bodyguard, but who also moved like a movie star through Beverly Hills supper clubs. When he began dating film icon Lana Turner, the luminous star of The Postman always rings twice. The gossip columns lit up. Turner was one of the most photographed women of the decade, a single mother, a survivor of multiple marriages, and at 37 still commanding top billing. Stompanato was 32, charismatic, controlling, and dangerous. Together, they were a tabloid dream and a publicist's nightmare. That April evening, the dynamic between them combusted. According to court records and sworn testimony, Turner had returned home from a day on set when an argument erupted in her bedroom. Her 14-year-old daughter Cheryl Crane, frightened by the shouting, entered the room. Moments later, Stompanato lay dying of a single stab wound to the abdomen. Police photographs show Lana Turner dazed and tear-streaked, Cheryl pale and shaking. The call to the police set off one of the most sensational headlines of the decade: gangster slain in star's home. It's a story of glamour turned toxic, of a mother and daughter caught in a maelstrom of violence, and of a man whose charm masked volatility. It's also a story about image, how Hollywood studios, lawyers, and the press shape a narrative of self-defense and innocence that the public consumed as if it were a melodrama. In this episode, we'll trace how the Stompanato-Turner relationship evolved, how that fatal night unfolded, and how the ensuing trial and media circus blurred the lines between victim, villain, and survivor. But for now, let's stay in that house in that moment. The Spanish tile roof glistens under a light drizzle. The scent of orange blossoms drifts from the garden outside. Inside, the decor is pure mid-century glamour. Cream-colored walls, gilded frames holding studio portraits of Lana Turner in sweeping gowns, the soft hum of a record still spinning on a turntable. Yet the tranquility is shattered. Raised voices echo down the hallway, his deep, clipped, and threatening, hers trembling but defiant. He calls her names, accuses her of betrayal. She warns him to leave. In the corner of the room stands Cheryl, a teenager torn between fear and protectiveness. Witnesses would later recall that Stompanato had been increasingly possessive, phoning Turner on set, appearing unannounced, threatening to ruin her career if she left him. Turner's friends had urged her to break it off. Some said he'd hinted at exposing private letters, others that he'd flashed a gun. On that night, according to Cheryl's testimony, he raised his hand as if to strike. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed a carving knife, and rushed back in desperation. One swift motion, one startled gasp, and the enforcer who had survived street fights and mob rivalries collapsed on the floor of a movie star's boudoir. This is the tableau we open with, not to sensationalize, but to humanize. Beyond the headlines, movie queen's daughter slays hoodlum, were real people, complicated motives, and a Hollywood system invested in maintaining a marketable narrative. The coroner's report listed the death as homicide. The district attorney's office convened a grand jury. After 9 days of testimony, the panel ruled it justifiable homicide, a child defending her mother. No charges filed. Case closed, at least officially. Yet rumors and alternate theories still swirl. Did Lana herself wield the knife? Was Cheryl coached by studio lawyers? Did police cut deals with underworld figures to keep the peace? As we'll explore in this episode, the truth behind that April night is layered. Documents released decades later show how closely the studio worked with Turner's defense team. Friends of Stompanato allege he was set up. Biographers have combed through court transcripts, personal letters, and FBI files, painting conflicting portraits. In the decades since, the story has become part of Hollywood lore, referenced in films, books, and TV dramas. A cautionary tale of love, control, and the violent underbelly of glamour. We ask, what patterns repeat across history when relationships built on allure and dominance turn deadly? What does this say about the culture that romanticizes dangerous men and demonizes women who fall for them? Picture the house once more. The police arrive, their flashbulbs bursting in the dark. Neighbors gather behind hedges. Reporters race to the scene. Lana Turner is escorted outside in a pale robe, her hair disheveled, but her posture composed, as if still on a set. Cheryl sits in the back of a squad car, blank-faced. Inside, detectives mark evidence, bag the knife, measure blood splatter. Stairs, the record player continues its low hiss, a soundtrack to a career-ending scandal that will not, in fact, end her career, but will forever attach a footnote to her name. This is our entry point. Over the next hour, we'll rewind to examine who Johnny Stompanato really was, how Lana Turner's life up to that night shaped her decisions, what led a teenage girl to thrust a knife into a grown man's chest, and how the courts and the press constructed a narrative of tragic self-defense. We'll also look at the ripple effects, the whispered threats from organized crime, the private settlements, the way this case changed public perception of Hollywood stars and their private lives. And before we dive deeper, a brief disclaimer. The visuals and images you'll see accompanying this podcast episode, whether on our website, YouTube, or social media, are dramatizations or stock photographs meant for illustrative purposes only. Out of respect for those involved, and due to the age of the case, we do not use actual crime scene photos or private family pictures in our production. What you hear today is a storytelling podcast based on historical records, court documents, and credible biographies. It is not a court of law, and while we strive for accuracy, some aspects remain disputed to this day. We include these disclaimers because our aim is to inform and analyze, not to exploit or re-traumatize. You're listening to Cougars and Gigolos. This is the story of Johnny Stompanato and Lana Turner, two glamorous names entwined in a moment of violence that shocked the world. And as you settle in, remember, behind the sparkling marquees and glossy studio portraits, there were real lives, real fear, and one fateful night that ended in blood on the carpet of a Beverly Hills mansion.